Yeah, hi everyone. Very good evening. I hope you all are doing well. So, little bit about myself. I am Jeevan Joshi. I am a software engineer here at GeekSpeak. I mostly build mobile apps using Flutter, and I also contributed to GeekSpeak's Flutter startup boilerplate code and created a CLI tool for the same. And currently, I am exploring iOS native development as well. Okay, so the topic of today's session is Dart Frog. So we will see what we are going to discuss today. So we will start with the introduction of the Dart Frog, like how we can set up Dart Frog as a backend, how we can add routes and middlewares, inject dependencies, implement WebSockets, and then we will conclude the session with a demo app. So basically, Dart Frog is a minimalist yet powerful backend framework for building high performance server side applications using Dart language for Flutter apps. And this Dart Frog package is developed and maintained by the open source team of Very Good Ventures. So basically, Dart Frog is a higher level abstraction on the top of Self and the Mason. And Self is a like HTTP server like built by the Dart team, and it provides us a way to create servers of our own. And whereas Mason is a template generator tool where we can generate the templates, and it generates the files very easily. And the Dart Frog inspired by many other tools like Remix, Next.js, and Express.js. And these are the some of the features of the Dart Frog. The main feature is the hot load. Like as we all know that the most popular feature of Flutter as well is the hot load, where if we make any changes on the code, it updates on the real time. Second feature is the file system routing. In Dart Frog, we have file system based routing, where we create some files, and every file correspond to a endpoint. And here it also provides supports of handlers and the middlewares, dependency injections, and we will see how we can build production builds and the WebSocket support. So now let's get started with Dart Frog. First of all, with the installation of the Dart Frog package. So the easiest way is to install from the pub.deb. So we just simply use Dart pub global activate Dart Frog CLI, and it will install the Dart Frog package in our system, and we can use it. To verify that, you just type Dart Frog in your terminal, and you will able to see some of the flags as well as commands. So currently there are 4 commands available. One is build to create a production build. Second is create to create a new Dart Frog app. Third is dev, which is used to run the development server. And fourth is update. If there is any update on the CLI, we can update using this command. So after installation, to create a new project, we just simply have to type Dart Frog create and the name of the project, and it will generate a brand new project in our directory. So we will see this type of project structure is generated when we type this command, and it generates a index.dart file inside routes folder, some text files and some linting files, and the perspec.yaml file. And if you look carefully, there are only two files which are most important. One is the perspec.yaml, where we keep all our dependencies and assets. Second is the index.dart, where we will keep our route handler. So to start this backend, we have to just type dart frog dev, and it will start a development server on the localhost at 8080 port. We can specify the port as well with the help of ---- port command. So after creating the project, the main topic, or we can say the main concept of Dart Frog is routes. So we will see how we can create routes in Dart Frog. So basically in Dart Frog, like each endpoint is associated with a routes file based on its file name. So assume we have if we created one file search.dart in our routes folder, so it will be correspond to a base URL /search endpoint. In the same way, if we have /auth login /auth/register, so we have to create a file corresponding to their name. Like I have created one index.dart file which will correspond to /auth. Currently in this structure, there are 2 nested routes as well in auth. One is login, second is register. So I created one folder instead of a file. But if there is only one endpoint, like in case of search, there is no nested endpoint like /search/filter. So we can just simply create a file. And but if there are nested endpoints, we have to create one folder. And this index.dart will be correspond to like its base path like /auth, and login will be auth/login. And it also supports dynamic routes. Assume we have something like post/1, post/2. So in this case, we have to create one folder having these square brackets, and we pass some name of for that like ID. So it will be correspond to post/1, post/2, etc. So in this type of file structure, there might be some issues arrived. Like one of them is the route conflicts. Assume we have one search.dart file, and we also have one folder name search. Inside we have an index.dart file. So it will be when we try to start the server, it will show some error that routes, there are some conflicts in the routes. So basically here the route/search/index.dart and route/search.dart both are resolving to the same endpoint, that is /search. To resolve this error, either we can delete over this folder or this file. So in this case, there are no nested routes, so it is a good idea to delete this folder and we will keep this file. And the second issue might arise is the rogue routes. In this case, this auth.dart is a rogue to this auth folder because it is defined outside of this directory, and we already have a directory with the same name. So in this case, to resolve this issue, what we can do, we can just simply rename this auth.dart to index.dart, and we will move this file inside our auth folder. So now our folder structure will be something like this. We have index.dart that will correspond to /auth endpoint. We have login.dart and register.dart. Okay, so after creating these routes, files or folders, our each file consists of an onRequest function, which is also known as route handler. So if we create, like, every file should have this this method, and this method should take one request context and returns a response. So in this request context, we can access all the data related to the incoming request. We can do some stuffs with these incoming request, and we can finally return a response. Basically, this request context contains a lot other informations, like all route handlers have access to information regarding the inbound request. Like to access the HTTP methods, we can use request.method.value, and it will provide like get method, post method. And if we want to access the headers, we can use request.headers. In the same way, we can access the query parameters and the body of the request. And in the same way, we can also return a response from our request handler. Basically, all route handlers must return an outbound response. So in this case, we have a request. We can perform some operations based on that request, and we can return a response. And response, we can include a status code, maybe 200, 201, 400, and these optional headers and body. We can also pass body in the form of JSON. Also, we have seen that Dartfrog also provides supports for dynamic routes. Like we created one folder having square brackets and ID, so we can accept this ID in our like a list of arguments, and we can do some operations based on these IDs, or maybe we can access that particular resource. And it also supports like nested dynamic routes. So we have post1/comments1, maybe post2/comments2. So we can use this second parameter also as an ID in our list of parameters. And the another important topic of Dartfrog is middleware. So after routes, we can see how we can add middleware in our backend. So basically, middleware is used to execute some code before and after a request is processed. Basically, it is used to modify the inbound request and the outbound response. It is also used to provide some dependencies on our code, and we can also verify the user whether it is valid or not. We can also add some common headers through middlewares and log our request. And the easiest way to add middleware in our code is by simply adding underscore middleware dot file in any directory. So basically in Dart Frog, every directory should have may have one like middleware dot file. So in this case, we have created one underscore middleware dot file in our routes folder. So every incoming request will be go through this middleware. And I have also created one more middleware inside our route/auth folder. So if we hit some endpoint like auth/login and auth/register, then this middleware will be executed. Also, this middleware will be executed. The first one will be executed for all the incoming requests, and second one will be executed for all the requests that are like connected with the auth endpoints. So now let's see one example of the middleware. So every like underscore middleware dart file should have this function, and the name of the function is middleware, and this function should accept one handler and returns a handler. And handler is nothing, just a type definition for the future or response. So here basically a handler is used to accept an request and returns a response. And also sometimes handler can handles these requests themselves, or they can do some operations on this request and forward it to some another handler. And this type of handler is known as middleware. So basically it sits on the middle of the stack. So here what we can do, like we have access to that request context, and we can perform some operations here, like to verify the user whether this method is authenticated or not. If it is valid, then we can pass this request context to our handler. Otherwise, we can simply return from this. And after when we pass this context to a specific handler, or it's a route handler, and when we get the response, we can do some perform operations on the response, like we can add some common headers, and then we can simply return the response from the handler. Now, dependency injection is another important term of Dart Frog. We can use middleware to inject dependencies in our code. So basically, middleware is used to inject dependencies in our request context with the help of provider. So basically, provider is a type of middleware where we create an instance of any type T, and we provide this instance to the request context, and we can access this instance with the help of context.read. Now we will see an example of this. So inside our middleware, I have created one instance of the database and injected into our like request context with the help of this provider method. And now I can use this instance of database from any route handler with the help of context.read and the type of the instance. And we can do some operations based on this instance, like we can perform some CRUD operations, and we can finally return some response. Okay, so the another important concept is WebSockets. In the latest version of Dart Frog, they also introduce WebSocket as well in a separate package to keep the Dart Frog's main package lightweight. And to add WebSockets in our code, we just have to import this WebSocket package, and we can make use of the WebSocket handler function. So basically, the WebSocket handler function accepts one channel and a protocol. And now we'll see how we can send messages from our server to the client with the help of WebSockets. So we will just subscribe to this stream with the help of channel.stream.listen. If we get any data from the front end, we will just print it, or also we can do some other operations as well. And we can also pass the data from our backend to the client with the help of sync.add method. So it will pass this message to our client. So in this way, we can send messages from our server to the client. Now we will see how we can receive those messages from the server. So in our like main file, we firstly have to use that particular endpoint. So we can we can use the same endpoints that we have already created, or we can create some other endpoints as well for the WebSockets. And with the help of WebSocket channel plugin, we can connect with this particular URL and send some messages to the server with the help of syncs.add method. And also we can subscribe to the channel with the help of channel.stream.listen. And so in the same way, if we got any message or data from the backend, we can easily access them. So in this way, we can implement the WebSockets as well. Now, when it comes to deployment, so deployment is pretty easy. We just have to use the Dart proc build command, and it will generate some files and folders inside our build folder with a Docker file as well. And we can deploy these files to three most popular platforms. One is the Google Cloud Run, second is the AWS App Runner, and third is the DigitalOcean App Platform. So in this way, we can deploy our backend as well. So after all these things, let's see a demo. So basically, I have created one demo app using Flutter and Dartfrog. So I will show you. Okay, so this is the code of the front end written in Flutter. I will just run this app. Okay, with the help of Flutter and dcrow, like I'm running it on the crow, and I specify the like port 7375. I was specifying this port because I have used the Google sign in there. So and added this port on the Google Cloud Console. So while the front end is running, let me start the backend as well. To start the backend, just type dartfrog dev, and we can also specify the port as well. And currently I'm specifying port 8090 because the 8080 port is used by this admin panel, and I have used the Docker to add the support of database as well. So let me start the server. Yeah, server is also started at localhost 8090 port. So we can sign in and sign up using Google. And when we sign in through Google, it provides us an access token, and we are passing this access token to backend to check whether the user is already registered or not. If it is registered, then we will simply log in, and it will be navigate to the home screen. Otherwise, it will like ask the user to first create one account. So we are saying that we are able to see some list of hotels. We can filter them as well, and in our backend, we can see we are getting some logs there. Like I have accessed the API // hotels, then sign in, then hotels, then I have added the filters. So I have added these routes in this type of file structure. In the base, we have one middleware where I have added a logger so that we can are able to see these logs. And this is then I have added another middleware as well, that is token verification. So I have used multiple middlewares, and I have changed them with the help of .use method. So in token verification, we are just getting the token and like from the header, and we are verifying this whether this token is valid or not. If it is valid, we are just simply pass this request to its particular route handler, or otherwise we will just simply return that user is not authorized, and we will return false. So in the same way, we have use also the dependency injection. We have injected the auth service there so that we can easily access auth service from our routes. Like in our auth sign in, we can access this auth service with the help of context.read auth service, and we can like check whether this user's data is added on our backend or not. So in the same way, we can use other endpoints as well. So this is a basic demo of Dartfrog, like how we can create routes and the middlewares, and we can access them. Now, as we all know that nothing is perfect, there's always a chance of modifications. So in the same way, there are some future scopes of the Dartfrog package as well. So one of them is the Open API documentation generation. So currently there is no such thing like we can, basically documentation is a very important part for like when we have to give APIs to the front end team. So they will have to look at the documentation. So maybe in future version of the Dart Frog, they will provide an option too, so that we can generate the documentations. Also, currently there is no built-in support for authentication and authorization. And in the same way, there is no database and ORM support. I am using Docker to use the Postgres in our backend. Maybe they will be provided in the next versions of the Dart Frog, and we will get some new commands to generate routes and middlewares, and also to deploy the project. And the health check endpoint for monitoring, like we can monitor our endpoints, like how they are working. And last, the VS Code extension support for Dart Frog, so that we can easily create new routes and middlewares. So yeah, that's all about Dart Frog. Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for your time.